Hello, everybody, and welcome to The Wait, where we talk about podcasts, episode 225. My name is Bret, aka Enigma9011, and you can catch this podcast live over on twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow over there. You'll get notified when we go live, so you join in the fun and conversation with us. But if you can't catch it live, that's A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week, where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video and MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, anyway, you can support the show, like, share, subscriptions, whatever it is. It may seem small, but does help the channel grow. So if you take the time to do that, we would love and appreciate you for it. Good boy, Moose. Today we're going to be talking about a whole lot of wrestling, talking about a recent trip that we took. Oh boy, there he goes. So let's jump on into it. So Lady and I kind of did a kind of quick treat yourself trip over this past weekend. Went out to Denver for some wrestling shows as Moose is freaking out and panicking. We went to NXT's No Mercy, and we went to Monday Night Raw, both out in Denver recently, and we had a great time. So just want to kind of go over each of the events separately, recap everything, thoughts, feelings about the live aspect of it, and just, I guess, gush. So let's start with NXT No Mercy. So, in general, this is the first time I've traveled out of state for wrestling. The farthest outside of that, I would say, is New York City. Probably the farthest we traveled for wrestling. And that was NXT Brooklyn 1. So, quite a few years ago. What was that, hold on. I want to say 2015. That sounds right. NXT Takeover Brooklyn. If I could spell, that would be great. Yeah, 2015. Yikers. So to travel for a show, first off, was a little weird, but fun to do. Definitely the time zones messed with us quite a bit. Obviously, watching it on the East Coast, things being usually 8 p.m. start time, 7 p.m. start time. It's nighttime, whatever. Going to the show middle of the day, at least getting there for doors open, and for the show to start earlier definitely was a little weird experience. I know with the recent PLEs that WWE's been doing, like a lot of the European shows, that's a bit different with those airing earlier in the day, but granted, you're still watching from home, so it's not too different, but this messed with us a little bit. But it was really fun to go to a whole different place and a whole different audience as well, to kind of see how they react to things in comparison. And I'll say, we got to step it up here, because Denver absolutely crushed it with in terms of the energy that they brought to each of the shows and what they reacted with and how they reacted and how strong they reacted to certain things. We'll talk about that and more in Monday Night Raw stuff. But it was a lot of fun. So we're already starting with NXT No Mercy. But so Lady and I got there, I'd say probably half hour after doors opened. And NXT, granted, probably more of a, I guess you could say, niche show. A little bit more of a hardcore audience there that is going to that. And it definitely showed in the numbers. There were less people there, and in general with tickets sold. And then even when we got to the arena, like, everything was very, not sparse, but it was definitely different in comparison to other wrestling shows that we've gone to for, like, the main roster stuff. Like, it's not you swimming through a sea of people to try and get to your seats or get to merch or get to food or whatever. This felt really lax, which was kind of nice and weird at the same time. Like, we had no wait line to get in initially when we scanned our tickets. And then once we got up to, the seating area where you would get to those things, like, wide open. Obviously, they still had a merch line and whatnot, but it was definitely more relaxed. Felt super comfortable just walking around everywhere. Wasn't anything was a rush or a bustle of people or whatever so that was kind of nice. And because there were so few people, like, they still sold a good amount, don't get me wrong. The reason we were able to go, or we decided to go, is they sold combo tickets. So if you bought one ticket for the NXT event, you would get the same seat essentially for the following night show for Monday Night Raw. So it's one price, the 2 tickets, you get to go to both events, which I will say, less expensive than just going to the main roster show from our experience, which was surprising. I mean, I guess that's kind of the point. They want you to do that, but surprising. So we went there, we scanned in, and then we get this little red light flash, and we're like, okay, cool. So security or ticket lady comes over. She's like, yeah, you're restricted or whatever. I don't remember her exact verbiage, but I was like, okay. Like, no explanation, nothing. Just, you're restricted. Gave me this, I don't know if it was stern look, but this look. And I was like, what's going on? Like, is this combo ticket drama? Because you only get one barcode ticket for your combo ticket. So I was like, is this something where it thinks it's tomorrow's ticket and it's messed up the scan there with this being my first time using a combo ticket? And it seemed like the internet had a lot of questions about it too when I was looking up stuff. A lot of people were confused about it. So you only get the one barcode, so I thought maybe it was an issue there. So she's like, all right, well, follow this gentleman and he's gonna bring you to this table. I was like, okay, great. So we follow him over there, and there's these 3 women sitting there at this desk, and they're like, can we see your ticket? Sure, whatever, just show them that. And then they just start flipping through, like, printed out tickets for the show. Oh, as I dropped it. And they're like, here you go. And they just handed us a printed out new ticket. And I was like, okay, thanks. And I look at it, and yeah, we were 4 rows closer. Initially, they had us a little bit more off to the side, so we went back, and they were very kind enough to switch us over back to where we were originally positioned seat-wise, so we weren't going to be as far away from the ring. But yeah, I guess in terms of combo tickets, they didn't sell as many. At least that was our guess. So they were obviously trying to fill in closer to camera, lower down, so it would look better TV-wise, presentation-wise. So that was a nice little surprise that they bumped us up. I can talk. I mean, it was only a few rows, but still, just a nice thing overall that they could do. I think for most of the show, we also had the row in front of us completely empty, or at least where we were directly sitting. So that was nice not to have to worry about looking over people when we stood up or whatever it was. So that was kind of nice, and we had some space to work with around us. We weren't cramped. So like I said, the guess was that they didn't sell as much combo tickets. So when I got the combo tickets, they kind of leave it so it's like this section of the arena is where you can pick from for your combo tickets in that pre-sale type deal. So it would make sense that, oh, they didn't sell that many, then they're going to move people up. But when we went to the following night show, we did not move up. It was where we were initially, so that was a little confusing how they determined that those people weren't going to be there. I don't know if it was just maybe they perhaps opened up that section after seeing the combo tickets weren't going as well for the Monday Night Raw show, and then they filled them obviously a single ticket for that night. That probably makes more sense. But all in all, nice little surprise on that night. So we got there, and we got there early. So we were sitting and waiting. They didn't have any pre-show or dark show matches, but what they did instead is, I guess on the network, they do that like countdown to No Mercy type deal, where they recap all the stories, and they got Sam Roberts and Megan Morant, I think her name is, kind of going over, like commentating over everything. So they put those on the screens for us as they were setting up, finalizing setup, and before the show actually started. And then we jumped into the actual event. So we had 6 matches in total, 5 title matches. And we started off with Chase U defending their tag titles against Nathan Frazier and Axiom. Definitely a good match to start off with. The crowd was hot and excited for them. Yeah, it was a fun battle throughout. We talked about it last week with our prediction show. I don't remember what I officially called. I think I said Chase U would defend, and then we've been seeing kind of a little bit of that fracture or like distrust between Nathan Frazier and Axiom here and there, with just like, oh, we're going to do our own solo stuff, and then it affected the tag a little bit here and there. So everybody thought if they're going to lose, they're going to break up. Well, it turns out Nathan Frazier and Axiom regained their titles. So now they're 2-time champs, which I was super stoked for. I mean, I was happy to see both teams here. And I thought they did a great job with moving around. I have had the opportunity to rewatch this from the network perspective, the TV perspective, if you want to call that. I did rewatch some of the matches, not all of them, unfortunately. But it looks solid, and it was a fun watch throughout. So Frazier and Axiom regain the titles, and Chase U's all sad, blah, blah, blah. And we see Duke Hudson and Riley Osborne leaving the ring. And I was kind of like, they were distrustful of Ridge. Are they going to do the whole, we leave the ring, and then they were going to be the ones to turn as they kind of separated from the group? But no, Ridge the Fridge decided, I'm done with Chase U, got angry, smacked both of them, took out Mr. Chase, and then DDT'd, kinda, Impaler. I don't know what his finisher is officially, but did that DDT to Mr. Chase on the announce table. Announce table did not break. Wait for that. And Andre Chase had to get taken out via stretcher, and Thea Hale was not too happy. So yeah, Ridge not in Chase U anymore. I think that was a month, maybe 2, or he got accepted into the group. They were a little skeptical, some of them, and then he proved himself. And now he's angry. Now, I know we're recording this on Wednesday, so technically we know a little bit of the fallout from last night's NXT. I haven't watched it, so he probably has some explanation of like, they weren't holding their weight, whatever it was. But not where I was expecting that to go. I thought this was a nice kind of fit for Ridge, because he's kind of been on that weird path, I guess you could say, since leaving the Brawling Brutes, coming back down to NXT, like where his character was going. He was doing this whole, he came back for a little bit, and he's like, I'm done with wrestling. Then he literally came back the next week, and him and Shawn Spears had a quick program. And then, yeah, I thought, like, at least with Chase U, he's character-wise trying to do better, I guess you could say. And it's just easy to, we talked about it a little bit in the past, like the faction feel, like you have more people on screen. It just feels like they're more active, participating, whatnot. So I thought it worked. It'll be interesting to see how he does on his own, if they can get momentum behind him that people will actually care. Hope so. I'm not the biggest Ridge fan, but he's not bad in any means. So hopefully they could just keep whatever momentum that is going there. Throughout the night, we did see a couple of tag teams call out Frazier and Axiom to try and be contenders. I think they had a number one contenders match last night. I think it was 3 teams. I think it was the Rascals, Hank and Tank, honk honk, and who was the third team? Rascals, Hank and Tank, and was it Gallus? Yeah, I think it was Gallus via Twitter. So we'll have to see who comes out of that on top. We'll have to see. All right, so that was our opener match. Then we went into probably one of the matches I was the most excited for was Zachary Wentz against Wes Lee. I really wanted to see the Rascals / MSK. Just not seeing them and being a big fan of them since they've shown up in NXT all those years ago. What was it, 2022? Something like that. So I wanted to see them live, and we talked about this, I think, in the predictions match or show podcast last week. Not knowing the full card, I was like, all right, well, I want to see Trick and Pete, and I want to see the 2 Rascals go against each other, but neither were official at the time. We thought the Rascals were facing off on Tuesday. It was just a promo battle. So really glad I got to see this one. I like both of them. I don't know if I like Wes particularly as a heel character. We'll have to see how that plays out, but I think the match overall went pretty well and was exciting. I don't know if it lived up to my expectations, but also that's me being just like, here's the bar, it's way up here. I think it was a little bit of a slow start, but as the ball got rolling, it went very, very well. There were some fun spots here. At the beginning, it seemed very choreographed, which isn't a bad thing. Just in person, it seemed really meticulous, and like they were thinking out, like, okay, I'm going to do this thing, I'm going to do this thing, duck this, do that, whatever. And it seemed slow. Watching it back from a TV perspective, it didn't seem all that bad. So I don't know why it felt that way. But yeah, as the match progressed and continued, I felt like it improved. We saw some dives from each of them. They eventually went out to the ringside. Wes attempted to hit Zach on the stairs with that Meteora. Zach moved. Wentz kind of bumped over the top. But he would get back into it, land some punches, land a hook kick, I believe. Zach kind of stumbled back onto the table where he was going to lay down for a spot, and the table just went, ooh, and just fell down. We couldn't see this whatsoever, either of the table spots, really, just with the amount of people standing up and being like, oh, it's right in front of us. So we just kind of went off the reaction of everybody else of like, oh, something happened. If you do watch the footage back, though, and I appreciate these guys doing that, they changed it right on the fly and called an audible. Wes literally just goes over and he's like, I'm going to jump anyway, and then gets up there. And I think it was supposed to be a Meteora on the table, like that flying knee strike that he does. Obviously, he had to adapt it so he doesn't squish Wentz's brains out, you know. So he jumps anyway. Hopefully he's fine. It seemed like he was. Sets up Wentz on the turnbuckle, is about to smash his head with the chair. Luckily, I saw, well, not luckily, but I see from across the arena, Trey Miguel's running in. Trey's able to save him by grabbing the chair and, you know, talking down Wes a little bit. We get the Canadian Destroyer on the outside, which was sweet. And then we get the astonishing UFO finish. Wentz just kind of walking Wes over, doing the pop-up springboard off that top rope. Big jump cutter UFO. 1, 2, 3. Wentz would win this one, which got me a little bit worried for later. I looked over at Lady and went, they let a TNA guy go over here. Does that mean they're not going to let a TNA guy go over later? We'll get to it. But really enjoyed the finish there. Was happy to see those guys wrestle. Third match. This was a little bit of a downer, and I hate to say it, just because I know both of these ladies are talented. It just was, in terms of a crowd, not a lot of investment behind it. So we did have the Women's North American title defense next. We had Kalani Jordan going against Wendy Choo. Both of them did fine. I don't know what it is. I don't particularly like Spooky Wendy Choo. Like, I liked Spooky Wendy Choo when she wasn't Wendy Choo. When she was spooky, she was with Xia Li, and she was, I don't remember the name for her character, but she was kind of in the chair, like, not their manager, but, like, overseeing everything. That had that mysterious vibe to it, but now for her to go to this, like, sleepover gimmick, which, while goofy, very goofy at first, it got entertaining because, like, she would drop an elbow, but she's actually got her hands next to her cheek, like she's, like, taking a nap, and poof, do a little headbutt, and, like, she would play up the gimmick similar to an Orange Cassidy, of, like, changing things up, but they actually work. And to have it, this evil side of the character, is still a bit of a head scratcher. Like, I get what they're playing off of, like, oh, she woke up on the wrong side of the bed, whatever. It's just, it just doesn't really work. So I don't know if that's why the audience response wasn't there. Both of them obviously can wrestle. It just wasn't super exciting. They did have one unfortunate mishap and botch. I think they both went up to the top rope. Like, Kalani got pushed off, I believe. Maybe it was Wendy. I don't remember. So one of them's sitting on the turnbuckle, gets pushed off of a little altercation they had. Then that person recovers, runs back up, and it was supposed to be like, we get up on the turnbuckle. I don't know if it was a Spanish fly. I don't know what they were intending, but it was going to be like a get up, set up, whoop, and then, you know, they would have gone. And unfortunately, the one that had gone up there slipped, fell, whatever it is, and then I believe... yeah, I think Wendy fell, and Kalani was like, oh, well, I'm supposed to go, and just kind of, and then jumped off herself of the turnbuckle. So that didn't help. I mean, granted, mistakes are going to happen. It is what it is. So Kalani did end up retaining here after hitting, She hit her split-legged moonsault second. I can't remember what she hit before that. I think it was the 450. She hit the 450 at some point. I don't know if that was 1-2 in succession. But she did retain. Tatum Paxley did creep and crawl out from under the ring and get her revenge on Wendy Chu with the little choke move that she's got, and then put the little Wendy Chu doll on the pillow. So that rivalry seems to be continuing of the Spookies. We'll have to see what's next for Kalani. So not awful. It just definitely, from the first two matches and the crowd reaction, this was definitely a low point. But we did get it back in match 4, which was the men's North American Championship. We got Obafemi going against Tony D'Angelo. Everybody, woo, for Obafemi. We were really behind Oba. No offense, Tony, but yeah, that man was not taking that title from Oba. He was the first one to kick out of, apparently, Oba's powerbomb move, that sit-down powerbomb, so good for him. Decent showing, especially off of an injury almost. Man, that was scary. So Oba and Tony were going. Tony bounces off the ropes, is coming back towards Oba, steps on Oba's foot, and just, there goes the ankle. He seemed fine. Lady and I were scared the whole time, just kept looking at it like, duh. But he recovered nicely, and they continued through. It did, put a lot of fear in me when I saw him go down, of like, this is a decent amount of time we're going to have to fill here if he is actually hurt. But lucky enough, he was able to get up, so that was good recovery. Oh, you thought he got a nut shot before the replay? No, yeah, I don't know. We didn't know until we watched the replay of the ankle roll, or saw it online. I don't remember. We just saw him run, and then he crumbled, like his knee had buckled or something, and we're like, yeah, something's going on. The two did all right. I can't really remember anything super memorable out of this. I know Luca Crucifino did get attacked at one point, and Oba pulled the crowbar from him, and then Stax got involved and got tossed over the ringside barrier. Outside of that, I mean, it's just two big dudes, so they're going to do mainly power moves. I can't think of anything super memorable for that, and I'm so sorry. But Oba did retain here. Oba not working the hard cam. Come on, brother. Did his finisher, faced away from the hard cam, and pinned him 1-2-3. So Obafemi would retain. No one's going to beat this man. The ruler destroyer, what he calls himself. It's going to be interesting to see if anyone will take that belt off of him, or if it's going to be an eventual dual title thing, if he goes to the world title, well, the NXT world title, or if he's just going to get called up to the main roster and kind of relinquish the North American belt. We'll have to see. I can't think of any newer talents that are coming in to NXT in terms of the men's side. At least single competitors. I don't know who will step up to Femi to take that. We will have to see. Papa Griff, just the placement of the legs. Could have actually been both. Oh, yeah, maybe. I don't know. Let's see. Papa Griff also commented on the Wendy Chu match. Felt like Wendy was going to win with her rage spots and sit-up spots. I agree with the crowd here. Also felt Jordan was not it. Kind of like I said about Natty in the past, but probably just because Jordan's kind of new, at least I think maybe over time. Yeah, I don't know what it was exactly, because last pay-per-view, which was it, Heat Wave? I don't think it was Heat Wave, but maybe it was Battleground. Doesn't matter. Last NXT PLE, you had Kalani Jordan and Sol Ruka going one-on-one, and that one was pretty good. Initially, when they did the number one contenders match for the main women's title, Sol Ruka was in that eliminator, and I thought she was going to go through before Jada Parker won. So I don't know. It felt like that crowd was a little bit more receptive of that match. Granted, they're both good guys, so it could have been that. We'll have to see. Yeah, I don't know what the disconnect was here. It could have just been a Burnout 2 type situation of, like, you got two hot matches off the bat. They were a little bit more quiet for the Rascals, or Rascal v. Rascal, you know. The opener, no doubt, was definitely our loudest until later. But I feel like they were still in it for Rascal v. Rascal. It just seemed in comparison that the women here were lower, so I don't know if it was just tired level thing or whatever it might have been. It's hard to say. Is Oba a face? Think so. Maybe Ridge comes after. Oba's been doing this fine line of just like, he's not really good guy, bad guy. Like, I would classify him as a bad guy. But he's just kind of like, I'm a big monster. And I just beat up everybody. So we'll have to see if there's any follow-up with last night's program. And yeah, see who's next for him. I would classify him as a heel. But who knows? Because he, like, even after every match, he's very receptive of the crowd, of, like, putting, kind of like that reach out, like, thank you, and not just like, nah, screw the crowd. Like, he's receptive to the ovations that he gets or the reactions that he gets. So he's walking a fine line where, yeah, I think he's just like, I'm here to beat people up. I don't know. Then we moved on to our next championship match. We did have the NXT Women's Championship. We had Jada Parker going against Roxanne Perez. Now, I think I talked about this last week. I was going into this match not expecting a lot. It was a very weird dynamic of heel v. heel. So I was like, how is this going to work? How is this going to be interesting? And I will be, I'll eat my words here. Denver showed up for Jada. Jada was really popular. And maybe this is just me being out of the loop, not watching week-to-week NXT. I didn't get the whole OTM gimmick. I thought OTM kind of showed up out of nowhere, and then they got that tag team pay-per-view spot a while back. Didn't really super impress, and then Jada just being lumped in there. I was like, I don't get the Grand Theft Auto type gimmick. But surprisingly, Roxanne and Jada did a fantastic job working together. I wouldn't say spot-wise it was the most exciting. You did have Jada try and do her hip check on Roxanne outside at one point, but she went through the barrier as Roxanne got out of the way. Roxanne hit 2 Pop Rocks, which that's just a fun move because it's similar to a destroyer. You had Roxanne taunting her the whole time, doing her taunts and her Jada's moves as well. But Roxy would eventually retain here. And then we got the debut we've been waiting for a while. We did have Julia come out after the match. Lots of smoke. Lots of questions in the air. I know there was a bunch of people talking, at least like fans that seem to be a little bit more in the know or really super invested, of like, well, Cora Jade's in town. She was talking about where to work out in Colorado. And we've had rumors about Julia for a while since seeing her at Stand and Deliver. Obviously, she was recovering from the wrist injury. So that could have delayed her appearance or arrival. And then Stephanie Vicare's on the cusp as well. I don't know what her visa situation is. And then we have the new signee of Delta as well. So there's potential around of who it could be or who was going to show up, if anybody. But Julia finally shows up, do a little stare down. Excited to see where that goes. Presumably that will be the next title defense for Roxanne. Halloween Havoc sooner? I don't know. But cool to see that. I don't have any experience of watching Julia matches, but I've heard the buzz around her, so excited to see her jump in there. And it seems like she's getting a lot of praise as well from like Io Sky and Kairi Sane on social media. So I like both of them. I'm sure they got good taste. We then got to our main event. We got the NXT Championship. Ethan Page going against Joe Hendry with special guest referee Trick Williams. Woo! Trick is popular. Everybody's super loud. I think that might have been Lady's favorite part of the whole weekend, as that song's been stuck in her head. Yeah, Trick was having a blast out there. He brought a whistle. Never used the whistle, which was unfortunate. But he was very entertaining. Everybody was really behind Joe Hendry. Lots of signs for him, as I saw. And similar to any pre-show, like people are wooing, people are yeeting, stuff like that. Like people were doing the We Believe and the claps, singing along to the song that he wrote about Ethan last week during the match and before the match as the vignette was going through. So there was that. So we're in that match. One thing I did forget to mention, even before the whole show started, as we were getting these new tickets, we saw somebody walking around in a nice pink suit. Champion Ethan Page was out with the common folk, walking around a little bit. I don't know what he was doing in particular. Like, I thought he was going to station up somewhere or cut a promo or whatever, but he kind of walked down. He was jabbing at a few people who were talking about Hendry or supporting Hendry. He's like, oh, well, where's he? He's not out here with you guys, is he? Like your champ is. I saw him take a photo with one family, tried to get a photo myself, but the security guy with him was like, nah, we got to get going. So he kind of just walked through the concourse where the tickets were and then just whoop right to the back. So I don't know what that was about, but that was cool to see. So we went into the match, and Trick said throughout the whole night, as we saw with promos in the back, he was going to call it right down the middle. He certainly did. Led to a point where I believe Hendry got the standing ovation, that choke slam that he does. But Ethan's foot was underneath the rope, which sucked. We thought he had it there. He certainly should have or would have. But Trick called it there. Then how did Trick get knocked out? At some point, Trick got knocked out of the ring, leaving Ethan to pick up Hendry, dunk him with the Ego's Edge, I believe. New referee almost immediately slides in. 1, 2, Trick dives in and catches the hand. Is like, nope, I'm the ref. I'm going to do this thing. Ethan, of course, gets all mad about that. Swings at Trick. Trick ducks, hits that referee. Allows for... Was this... No, okay. Sorry. Ethan hits that referee. Trick turns around to tend to that referee. Ethan low blows Hendry, then hits him, perhaps, with another Ego's Edge, and then Trick has to count 1, 2, 3. So Ethan did retain. Big sad face. They had us towards the end. We were all getting super invested. But yeah, just to hear everybody like, oh, as the 3 hit, just the excitement go out of the room of like, fuck, that he won. So Trick raises his hand. And then we get Pete Dunne running in, attacking Trick on the outside to continue their program. Pete Dunne and Paige share a little bit of a look to each other. And we go off the air there. After the show, Trick and Joe Hendry did talk a little bit. They both did the wave your hands in the air. Trick leaving the arena did a little turnaround like Hendry does. But yeah, Ethan overall would retain. So prediction-wise, I didn't do super great. It was unfortunately what I called earlier. We let one TNA guy win to then let the other one lose later. Interesting call here. I wonder what is going to be the fallout from this. Perhaps this is just Joe's end of his tenure in WWE until maybe a Rumble appearance. And we'll have to see where Ethan goes from here. I know Trick and Pete have their rivalry going. Is this just trying to get Trick back into that world title picture? Is he going to be the next one lined up for Ethan? Perhaps. In terms of fallout overall, like I said, the NXT show did go last night, so probably everything I say here is going to be wrong. So obviously it seems clear, cut, and dry that Roxanne and Julia is going to be the next program for the women's title. The Women's North American Championship, that is a good question. I don't know if they're going to rope Rosemary into that, as Rosemary did appear last week to help out Wendy Chu. So you could do more crossover there, perhaps. But it's a decent-sized women's division, so that could go anywhere. I'm curious if the Rascals business is not done. Obviously, the Rascals, Trey and Zach, are going for the tag titles, perhaps, depending on how that number 1 contenders match goes. But there was a slight thing that Wes did before he grabbed the chair. Zach, obviously new X Division champion as of last Friday at Emergence, I believe is the show was called. He won the X Division championship there in Ultimate X. He wore it out to the show at No Mercy. Cool to see. But when Wes was going to get the chair, he grabbed the title first, and he kind of gave it a little of a side eye before tossing it to the floor. I'm curious if Wes is going to be so mad that he lost here that he's going to try and take that X Division title from Wentz, and maybe that's how we continue the story. We'll have to see. if that's the case, or if we just move on with Frazier and Axiom possibly defending against the Rascals. We'll have to see. And then we kind of already talked about with Obafemi. Where does he go next? I can't think of any prominent heels. Perhaps a Javon Evans. Get bouncy, Oba can toss him around, similarly tossed Wesley around. But we can keep Javon in the zeitgeist, sounds weird, but keep him elevated and keep him doing stuff. Even in a loss, I don't think that would hurt Javon. So perhaps he's an easy one to fit in there. If Oba's not heel, like Papa Griff said, maybe we go Ridge there. If he doesn't continue anything with Chase U and battling them. And then, we got the Chase U fallout, if anything, from there. So I think that covers everybody at least who retained or is in the title picture here. But overall, No Mercy was a lot of fun. I had a great time with it. Lady did as well. And it was just a lot of fun being my first also pay-per-view. Well, no, not first pay-per-view since that TakeOver Brooklyn 1. It's just a different atmosphere in comparison to Monday Night Raw, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. But obviously not having the commercial breaks that you need to deal with and just going one thing to the next. The show does go a little bit quicker. I think this was like 2.5, 2:45. But just to go one thing next to the next to the next to the next is kind of nice. And obviously the people who are there are like super invested, which is nice. So to have that crowd energy was pretty fun. Totally not even in tune with the show, or at least what happened, but just some fun stuff. So when I got the tickets, I just always wanted to check in and be like, oh, I wonder how the ticket sales are doing, or like where closer seats are doing and whatever. So there was some front row seats, dead front camera, so you'd be on TV the entire time. There's a set of 4 resale, crazy person, trying to sell them for $9K a seat. And I'm like, jeez. So I just kept an eye on that because I was like, I'm curious if these will even go. They never went. Day of, they progressively got lower as we got closer to the show. Day of the show, they were down to 676. So when Lady and I got to the arena, I had my eyes on those seats. Now this is where something funny, besides just the resale, goes. That's where I noticed pay-per-view guy was there. No, not green smiley shirt guy, but pay-per-view guy with long hair who has gone to the NXT shows for years and years, and his mom. They were there, and I'm not gonna lie, I kind of got excited. I was like, oh, they're right there. Oh shit, I didn't even think about it for some reason that they were even gonna be there. So that was a fun, nice surprise. They had an interaction with one of the cameramen, obviously recognized him, hugs, gave him some water. I'm like, oh geez, all right. Good on you guys. So eventually I had my eye on those seats. They weren't going. At some point those seats did get filled. So I don't know if someone did end up buying the resell or if some people got shifted over. I think they shifted a few people over camera side, not a whole bunch. I don't know if they would have filled those people up from like somebody from the other side. I think they would have just been like, all right, second row, you guys can move up and go from there. So I think they got sold. Trying to think if there was anything else. Oh, surprising, Alicia Taylor being the announcer. I don't know what happened to Mike Rome, but that was a nice, fun surprise because I really enjoy her announcing style. So nice to hear her. Booker T got a huge reaction when he came out. Everybody loved Booker. And seeing those interactions before they go live too was a lot of fun. Like Booker just laughing, and obviously the reactions. People were chanting, "Can you dig it?" People were doing the Hail Booker thing. He was just hamming it up, and then people felt bad, and we're like, well, we also like Vic, so like a few people were like, yeah, Vic, we love you, and he turned around, did a little heart, and then some people tried to do like a Vic chant, and he turned back, he's like, no, it's all him, he makes the big bucks. So that was funny. Other than that, I don't know if there are any fun little setups. No Prime hydration station. They had the little championship like podium, so I knew match order, or at least I knew when the Rascals were because they moved the podium out of the way. I don't know if there were people bleeding, but they switched canvases twice. We'll follow up on that point in Monday Night Raw if I remember, but they did switch a canvas there, which made sense, but I didn't see any blood, but granted, we're up, pretty far away, so I don't know if we'd even notice that unless we looked at the monitors. But they did do two canvas swaps there. And then, yeah, creepy Tatum Paxley. How long was she under the ring for? I still will never know how they do this. If they're just sitting under there the whole time, if they roll them out at some point during the darkness when they're like, hey, look at the screen over here. No idea. Papa Griffin chat. So what was Lady's take on Wendy Chu? You said in an earlier episode or in the public how you would like to see this. Yeah, she had not seen the Wendy Chu character prior to the pre-show and takeover. So yeah, Lady? Yeah, all right. Wasn't as big of a reaction as I was thought. I thought she'd be like, what the hell is this? So, is what it is. But yeah, NXT No Mercy was a lot of fun. Has me already thinking like, other shows, Halloween Havoc. But, no.